I'm Donna and this is Charlotte. We're from Pimms Needles. Thank you for listening to our podcast. This is brought to you with Point North.
It's funded through a fund called Enriching Later Lives, and it's in conjunction with and to support our men's group, which is called Old Dogs New Tricks. And it's all about supporting men in midlife and facilitating healthy habits going into their senior years.
So we hope you enjoy it. Hi and welcome to our podcast. Today we are joined by Mike from Hogarth Honey. Really excited about this one.
I am as well. I feel like we've got so many questions today.
I hope I've got the answers.
It's such a new topic. It's really exciting. Welcome, Mike.
So have you always, we'll just launch straight in. So have you always been into beekeeping, or what was your journey for getting into it?
I mean, if you've got 5 minutes, I'll explain how I arrived to where I am today. So I'm actually a motor mechanic.
Wow.
And I've been repairing cars for 42 years and actually ran my own car repair business for 22 years. And that was put an end to by COVID.
Right.
I actually worked all the way through COVID, right through it. And then some policies that the government actually brought in towards the end of the COVID era really did put paid to my business.
Right.
And but 16 years ago, a friend of mine who actually used to do a lot of business within the motor trade, a chap called Don Hilton, he bought a new piece of land and a house, and he had 2 acres of land and no idea what to do with it. So I said to him, any chance I can grab a bit of that land and make an allotment on it? So very graciously he allowed me to do that. We fenced it off, made our allotment plot, and that was that. And I actually went with my wife to the Cleveland show that used to be in Stewart's Park in Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
And so we ended up in the horticultural tent looking at all the giant cabbages and onions, all that stuff that I can't grow. So we're walking around the horticultural tent, and Cleveland Beekeepers Association was there, and they have their honey show. And but they have an observation beehive with them. And so I got talking to the beekeepers, and absolutely brilliant group of people, so informative, and watching the bees, they're just absolutely mesmerising. So I've always been quite involved with nature. I was the kid in primary school that used to take the frogs and tadpoles in, and that kind of thing. And I thought, well, bees, they're just a natural thing to go with my allotment. So I joined the association, and the following year I got my first colony of bees, which quickly turned into 3.
Wow.
Because they do things like swarm, so you've got to go and capture them and rehome them.
Right.
And that's where it started, really. So I've kept bees for 14 years now.
Wow.
And so at the end of COVID, I was really, really frustrated with the job that I did. And I think a lot of men of my age at that time do go down that path. Been doing my job for 40 odd years, and I was bored with it. I was just fed up. I was having to drag myself out of bed every morning to go to work. I really wasn't enjoying it. And so trying to drag my business forward after COVID was really difficult. And I was getting just angrier and angrier doing that. And
I think COVID was a time like for that, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I think you lots of people just thought, do you know what, I'm going to change my life now. It really kind of forced that.
You don't think about the impact on the car, like, until you mentioned it then, because I was thinking, why would you be quiet? But nobody's driving the car.
No.
So if the cars weren't doing any miles...
That's what happened, you see.
Yeah, that's good.
And because
I never thought that.
Cars had only done something like 2,000 miles, and so they didn't need servicing. The thing that really hurt me was the government introduced policy of extending the car MOT for another 6 months.
Yeah.
Most of my clients would have an MOT and a service done at the same time. So I lost both sides of the business. And so I was just doing repair work, really, which wasn't the mainstay of what I did. And so really fell off a cliff edge, you know. And so getting more and more frustrated with it, my wife, who's my rock, you know, she said to me, look, why don't you pack the car business in and just concentrate on the bees? You know, the bees really have become my passion. You know, I love dealing with them, working with them, everything that they do. And so I was like, yep, okay, that's agreed. Thank you very much.
That's all you needed.
It was a double barrel, actually, because she allowed me to get a dog at the same time. I've been wanting a dog for 40 years. So Indiana is the Hogarth Honey dog. So she comes with me everywhere. So we get to go around all the farms and things, and the farmers are absolutely brilliant. They just let me do whatever I want, and they're so supportive. So that's my life completely changed over literally over a weekend almost, you know. And that's what I do now. I'm a full-time beekeeper. I've obviously run my Hogarth Honey business, and we sell, you know, local markets. I met Donna at Making Men Festival, it was, wasn't it? And it's actually changed my personality a little bit, because believe it or not, I really didn't like people. When you work on your own, you become very insular. You do. You become a bit strange, to be honest. And
all these mechanics.
And the thing is, when you're repairing cars, people only come to you with problems. There's no really good side to it. You know, nobody rings you up and says, you know, gives you some good news. You'll ring you up with bad news, like my car's broken down and mum's in hospital, I've got to go there, and dog needs to go to the vets and all that sort of thing. So you're like the 5th or 6th emergency service, honestly. With the help of my wife, I was able to do beekeeping full time. And I've never looked back. I so wish that I discovered this 30 years ago. You know,
were you selling, when you say you sort of went full time, were you selling some of your honey before that, or was that the point where you started making it commercial and it became a business?
We were selling it quite small scale.
Right,
friends and families. I didn't do any markets or any proper business events with the honey. Thank you, Donna. That became... Really, what happened was, because I expanded the number of colonies that I was keeping, I average around about 40 colonies now.
Wow.
And so you need an outlet for all this honey that the bees produce. In a good year, you just got it everywhere.
Keeps, doesn't it, for hundreds and thousands of years?
Well, that's right, it's a preservative in itself, so it doesn't go off. It changes its structure. It will crystallise, which all honey does, and believe it or not, the better quality honey tends to crystallise quicker,
right?
Because it still contains the pollen grains, and that's what the crystals form on. You see, so if you ever have your honey in the cupboard and it goes white and sugary, don't throw it out. There's nothing wrong with it.
Dip it in hot water.
That's right. Yeah. So the sales side of it was just a way to get rid of the byproduct, really. I never got honeybees to make money or to get honey. I got them to pollinate the plants in my allotment. That was the interest.
Okay.
And I didn't even like honey then. And it's because I'd only ever had supermarket honey.
Yeah.
And when I tasted my first jar of real honey, I was absolutely blown away.
Wow.
It's so different. And now we do quite a large range of different honeys. We do wax products and beeswax candles, and every year we sort of try and add little bits, filling out our stall. So we've gone from, we can just about get away with a 6-foot table, but quite often we're looking for double the table size now because we've expanded what we do, so.
Gosh, that's
But yeah.
So, and do you, when you were saying you've got them everywhere, different farms, is that what you do, or do you have them all your colonies in one place?
So I've got
I'm a complete novice about bees, so
I've got them on 4 different farms actually,
okay.
And some of the farms I've got them in multiple locations on the farms, and so we get a different range of different types of honey because the bees will forage on whatever's in their local area, so it does change. And as I've said, the farmers couldn't be more welcoming, and being involved on that side of it gives you an insight into farming life as well. Actually, we all have a perception of what farming is that we see maybe on Country File, or I've got a clue really what goes on a farm. I have no idea how they manage. That they never stop working, and they can't do enough. They'll build enclosures and pens. They'll give me a hand moving equipment, and we do some migratory beekeeping as well. So we go up to the heather moors, and there's a farm up at Middleton Teesdale that we go to. Absolutely lovely people, and you don't know them from Adam when you first start. You sort of get an invite to go up there, and friends over at Commondale and Westerdale over on North Yorkshire Moors, so we go over there. So we'll take a couple of colonies to each location, and if the weather's nice, which it really wasn't last year for the heather crop, but if it's good, we'll get a good crop of heather, and it's a really distinct, unusual honey as well.
So do you give them honey? Do they benefit with the bees fertilising the honey, or
on the farms? No, because the farm crops are predominantly wind pollinated.
Right.
They do grow things like oilseed rape and field beans, which it's very variable whether or not the bees will actually visit that crop. This year, there must have been 500 acres of oilseed rape near my bees, and they never touched it.
Really?
And it's very distinctive when it comes into the hive. The nectar, the honey that's made from that, it crystallises it literally overnight. You get a change, a cold spell, and it sets like candlemint cake in the honeycomb, and you can't get it out. And I haven't seen a drop of that this year, and the bees should have been all over it. But they've completely ignored it, which I don't mind because it's such a pain to extract.
Yeah.
If you do get it in the hives, but bees are so clever, they are so economic at what they will do. They will only forage on the best available food source. They'll even forage on one half of a tree.
Wow.
So if you imagine one side of it's in sunshine and there may be a slight breeze blowing, and it literally dehydrates the nectar, so it concentrates the sugars. So the bees will work that side of the tree, and the other side of the tree may be in the shade and sheltered from the wind, and the nectar on those flowers will be actually have a much higher water content, so the bees will ignore that. And that's how clever they are. Wow. So where they forage is whatever they've found to be the best available food source.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Really fascinating. I was going to say, for somebody that is listening that doesn't really know the process, what do you need and how does it work? What happens?
For anybody that was considering taking up beekeeping, we get asked this question all of the time. It is not like keeping some rabbits or some hens in a hutch. Any person doing it should, really should, and I need to emphasise that, do a basic beginner's beekeeping course. So there's several associations in our area. It's Cleveland Beekeepers that I'm a member of. You've got Darlington Beekeepers over here, who are a really good association. And I think Newton Aycliffe have a beekeeping association as well. So they do introductory days where you can go put a bee suit on, and they'll give you a frame of bees to hold on to. And that's where you'll find out whether you're going to freak out or not, having a couple of thousand bees in your hands.
Is it overwhelming then the first time that happens?
When I'd done my introductory course, I wasn't overwhelmed. I was more intrigued. The overwhelming thing happened when I got my first beehive, and taking the roof off on your own and looking inside a hive that's maybe got somewhere between 20 and 40,000 bees in it.
Wow.
I've never sweated so much in all my life, honestly. It was dripping off my forehead.
Wow.
And I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I had done what they call the beginner's course, runs over several weeks, and it's a nationally accredited course put together by the British Beekeepers Association. So that's the first step. And then obviously you're going to need to buy some equipment. So a beekeeping suit, a smoker, what we call a hive tool that's used for removing frames out of the hive. You're going to need a hive itself and the frames and everything that goes in there. And then when you've done all that, you're going to get your first colony of bees. So setup costs, you're probably looking at somewhere in the region of about £500 to £700, depending how you source your equipment. So I bought my first beehive, cost me £200 at the time, and then I basically used it as a template to. I've built all of my own equipment ever since. So being able to measure it and just construct my own beehives. Colony of bees, we would always advise that you buy them locally, because bees are very adaptive to their local environment. So one of the mistakes a lot of people make is they'll buy bees, like imported bees, or get them from other parts of the country, and they may not be suitable to our region.
An imported bee.
So honestly, they just send them through the post.
The bees?
You just get a box of bees delivered through the post. Yep.
And they're alive.
Yep.
Wow.
So
crazy.
the thing to consider is that bees have actually evolved to be inside something for long periods of time. So over the winter, they don't hibernate like other animals and insects do. So they will cluster together and, keep warm, generate heat. And so if you put them in a box, and send them somewhere overnight delivery, they're used to being inside a box or a tree or a cave for weeks and months at a time.
Wow.
That's what they've evolved to do over the winter, you see. So it doesn't cause them any harm as long as they're not exposed to too much heat, and obviously as long as they're not getting thrown around.
I was going to say they were getting thrown around with all the vintage parcels.
Yeah, you can buy queens, come in a little box.
I was going to say, it's like a queen. If you're setting up a colony and you need a queen, where do they come from?
So you get them from either breeders.
So did they specifically breed queens, or did they breed bees
yes,
and then
do,
think
yeah.
that's a queen? Or?
Well, the breed queens to send to people who are looking to replace queens in their own colony, or sometimes a colony of bees will lose its queen for some unknown reason.
And there's just one queen.
And usually there's only one queen in a hive. You can get situations. So the bees, as a queen ages, she has a pheromone. So if you think of like a perfume, and the bees actually lick that off her body, and they pick it up from where she's walked on the feet, and they pass it around the hive. So within something like 30 minutes to an hour, every bee in a colony will have a taste of the queen's pheromone.
Wow.
And when you think some of my colonies will have maybe over 100,000 bees in them, and every bee knows what that queen's quality is like. And as she gets older, her pheromones diminish. And so the bees can sense that. And so what they'll do is, once they feel that she's not fertile enough, not strong enough, they'll literally do her in. And
She's getting shipped to house.
Oh, they will. They are
For younger model.
absolutely ruthless, honestly. I wish we run our society a little bit like this.
We do. So
Yeah,
Midlife crisis. Get out. Get a new one in.
I mean, queens can last up to 5 years, but it's just substantially longer than most of our prime ministers in the last few years, isn't it?
When they've had enough, they just find a way. So what do they do? Do they kill her?
So they'll either throw her out of the hive, or they'll all jump on top of her and what we call ball the queen, and they'll overheat her and give her a heat stroke, and kill her.
oh my gosh.
And then they'll raise a new queen, so they'll pick an egg, and once that egg emerges as a larva, as a grub, they'll feed it royal jelly constantly, which is a foodstuff that they make in their mouth parts, and that allows the bee to fully develop into a queen. So all of the workers in a beehive any one of them could have been a queen if it was chosen.
Right.
So it's not a line of hereditary as such. The bees pick,
How do they pick? I mean,
we don't really know, because from what I understand, that if they raise their own queen through that process, they will raise a queen that is the most genetically matched to the queen that they had before. If I was to take the queen out and leave them queenless, they'll pick a larvae and make what we call emergency queens. Right. So they'll raise a queen, and they'll raise a queen that is the most genetically diverse from the queen that they had, because maybe they think there's something wrong with her. Right. And so they'll do that. How they choose that, we've got no idea.
That is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's thought that when a queen lays an egg in a queen cell, it actually lays a slightly different egg to the one it would lay in a worker bee cell. This has only just recently been discovered, that it's genetically slightly different. How the bees know this, I haven't got a clue. Nobody really knows.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
All of that is happening, and you don't think about it, do you?
Yeah. I mean, their bodies are so in tune with the environment and their environment in the hive. Their body is just covered in sensors. All the hairs that you see on the bee's body, they're all like chemical receptors. A male bee's antenna has something like 10,000 receptors just on his antenna.
Wow.
And that's so he can pick up the scent of a queen bee on a maiden mating flight. And so they can sense gravity and electricity. The absolutely amazing creatures. Yeah. If you've ever watched a bee on a bush with flowers, and you see the bee darting around, and it's going from, if you notice, it doesn't just go from flower to flower to flower. It's sensing all of the flowers that are on that plant, and it can tell if another bee has visited it. Bees have smelly feet, believe it or not. So when a bee lands on a flower, it actually leaves a scent trail. So another bee flying towards that can smell that. So it won't go to that flower because it knows there's no food there. It can tell whether it's got nectar in it, because nectar has a very weak electric charge to it, a negative charge. And when a bee's flying through the air, it picks up a positive charged particles. So when it approaches a flower, there's that magnetic attraction between the two, so it knows if there's nectar in the flower, and the hairs on its body will actually bend down towards the flower slightly through gravity, so it knows that there's a nectar source in there. So they are so, if God ever made the perfect creature for the planet, it really was the bee. It is so amazingly engineered. And on its forelegs, it has a cutout, if you look at it under a microscope, and it's this little half semicircle cutout. And that's so it can comb its antenna and comb the pollen off its antenna with his specially adapted legs. And amazing creatures, they really
One
are.
of our questions was, are they intelligent creatures? I think we've answered that, haven't we? 10 times over. It's amazing.
Intelligence, the more you learn about them, they're just amazing. I don't think of it as intelligence like we have. I mean, their navigation, you've seen the waggle dance, I presume. I think everybody's aware that bees do a waggle dance. And that's to give directions. And I'm not sure that there's any other animals can actually give, its family members or members of its species actual directions. I mean, birds and animals, they do migration, but that's just built into their instinct to, fly south in the winter or, whatever they do. Whereas a bee can actually tell the members of its own group exactly where a food source is. And, when they do their waggle dance, they're telling you where the direction of the sun is, how far to travel, which angle to aim away from the sun to get to the food source. And I'd kept bees for probably 3 or 4 years before one day I lifted a frame out, and quite often there'll be a bee doing a waggle dance on the frame when you remove it from the hive. And I had this sudden realisation that, hang on, this takes place in the dark. We see the waggle dance as a visual thing.
Yeah.
When a bee enters a beehive, because they're so efficient, they actually disconnect their eyes from the nervous system. So when a bee goes into a hive, it doesn't see, because that costs energy. So, and they're so super efficient. So this waggle dance takes place inside the hive in the dark. So the bees don't actually see the waggle dance. They feel it as vibrations through their feet on the honeycomb. So it vibrates. So it's like, the honeycomb's dance floor, and they feel the rhythm of the bee that's doing the dance.
Sounds quite fun, being a bee. I think I quite like it.
And so that's how they do their navigation.
Wow.
And how long do the normal bees, like the worker bees, how long do they live for?
So in the summer months, like now, they're working their socks off, and if the weather's really good, they will die really quite quickly, and just work themselves to death. And you see the older bees coming back into the hive, and they've got no hairs on the body. The wings are all torn and battered, and so they will live somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks.
How's that all?
Yeah,
wow. Just when you were saying that the queens can live.
Yeah, well, she's in the hive. She isn't flying.
Right.
So she,
It's very protected then,
yeah,
I guess.
I mean, the bees will fly roughly around 1.5 miles from the hive is the average flight distance. But I think it was Sheffield University done some trials, and a bee will fly as far as 7 miles if it really has to. And, tiny little creature.
Yeah.
It's
a long way, isn't it?
And so, in the winter months, in the autumn, they actually develop a slightly different bee, so it's able to put on more fat reserves, and they can live up to about 6 months through the winter. But then they're in the hive all the time, so they're not actually working themselves to death like they do in the summer months, So.
And so does the queen lay all the larvae, so she produces all of the bees, the worker bees?
In a normal situation, all of the eggs that are laid in the hive are laid by one queen.
Wow.
So every worker bee in that hive is a sister, and but they're not all complete sisters, because when a queen bee goes on a mating flight, she will mate with somewhere between 15 and 20 drones.
Wow.
So, the worker bees are half sisters.
Okay. So does she go out to mate then, the queen?
Yeah, so...
And does it a bee that's not in the hive currently, she'll meet a new bee?
Yeah, so,
right, okay.
the mating flights, it can fly as far as 14 miles. So drones meet in what we call a drone congregation area. So it's...
This is amazing.
Yeah, you've got to think of a nightclub dance floor. So the guys are all hanging out at the drone congregation area, and they're basically fly around, and they'll come from colonies all over the area, and they'll meet in one place, and nobody knows how they all know where to meet.
Gosh.
You know, there's all sorts of
Be noticed by
there's all sorts of theories about the Earth's magnetic field and geographical things like trees or hills, but nobody really knows. So the guys are all hanging out there, and then our virgin queen, who's just emerged from her cell to go on a mating flight, she'll turn up at the dance floor, and she will fly high into the sky, and it looks like a comet, a queen at the head of it with a trail of male bees, drones chasing her, and only the fittest and strongest bee will get to catch her and mate with her.
Wow.
And for the poor drone, that's it. It really is one bam.
Does he die after that?
Yep, it's his one night stand.
Oh, really?
The act of mating actually kills him. So
Wow.
It's romantic, really.
yeah, and
Romeo and Juliet.
yeah, so she'll mate over 2 or 3 days, and when she comes back to the hive, that's her job for the future. Then is just laying eggs. She's an egg laying machine. Somewhere between.
Did she mate with multiple bees in that time?
Yep.
Okay. So how does that work? So that she's then laying larvae from multiple different bees?
Yeah, so when she's mated with a drone bee, she has a, I can't remember the name of it, a little pouch where she stores the sperm.
Okay.
And so she'll fill that with sperm from different male bees. And then over the years, she just release individual sperms will go down the egg-laying tube and meet an egg and fuse together. And
So she's only going on that journey once and doing that.
that's right. She only ever does that.
She returns back.
Nightclub once.
She only goes once, but she's got enough for 5 years.
That's right, yeah. So, and she'll store that.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And for the poor drone bees, well, that's their single job in life, is to mate with a queen, and only a very, very small percentage of them will ever be able to do that. And the drones do nothing.
Right.
Like a lot of us guys, they just sit around the house all day, drinking and eating,
Just hang
chilling
out in the
out.
hive waiting
Yep.
to
And
get
then,
the call.
but at the end of summer, bees being the efficient creatures that they are, the drones don't do any work. So the worker bees will drag them out of the hive and throw them on the floor, and then completely refuse to allow them back in. And it's quite sad as a male going there
Like
and
this kind of approach to life, to be
and
honest.
seeing
Yeah.
all these poor drones, and they're walking around, they can't get back in the hive. The girls are just like, "You're not coming in here, guys." And then they leave them out to die, so they get picked off by wasps and
Wow.
birds and things.
Can you spot that happening there?
Oh, it's very, very
Is it?
noticeable, yeah.
So do they look different?
The drones, yeah, they're... I'm going to get slated off the guys here, aren't they? The drones are bigger and fatter and bulkier,
Right,
and they've
right.
got quite large eyes, actually, because they need to be able to see a queen
right,
chase on a
okay.
mating flight, so they've evolved these larger eyes. But, yeah, they're a much bigger bee in that respect, so it's very noticeable when they're being thrown out on the floor.
Gosh, it's a bit brutal, isn't it? But fair enough, I suppose. If they've so would they have been waiting for their opportunity to go?
Yeah, they basically...
They've missed the opportunity,
Missed
kind
it,
of thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And, mating generally takes place sort of May, June time.
Right,
It can
okay.
take place later in the year, right up to, say, October. But the main period is now.
Right.
They miss that, and there's fewer queens about, so the chances of them mating...
It's gone. So they're taking up space in the hive. Get rid of them.
That's right, yeah.
They're not doing
It's
anything.
freeloading.
Yeah.
Really are, yeah. So, the workers, they do everything, so... And worker is such an apt name for them, because the minute they emerge from a cell where they've been developing and before they've even come out of the cell, they'll stick their heads out and they'll use their tongues and clean the area around the top of the cell. And then once they emerge, they go through various stages as what we call house bees. So they'll tend the young, they'll feed the young, clean the cells, clean the hive, take out any dead bees that are inside the hive, and eventually they'll progress until they're a guard bee, where they guard the entrance of the hive. And once they've done that for several days, they'll then go out and become a scout bee looking for food, and then finally they'll become a foraging bee, and that's where they'll, work themselves to death at the end of that, so...
Do you get quite attached to your beehives?
Oh, massively. Do
you give them names or anything?
I don't know. It's like hive number 3 and hive number 9. So I've got friends that do, but I've got that many that...
Yeah. Do you have a favourite one?
I do it on occasions. So there's certain colonies that either grow really rapidly or they're really nice bees, and you do sort of form attachments with them. And they also, from what we understand, bees can recognise faces. They have absolutely brilliant geographical memories. They remember shapes and objects and things. And so it's thought that bees actually recognise you as a beekeeper.
Right.
And I've experienced that in a way. I took a friend that I was mentoring. He hadn't been keeping bees long, and I took him to my apiary to show him around some of my hives. And we had the roof off the top of the hive, and we were inspecting the bees. And it dawned on me that there was a big cloud of bees around his head, and there was none around mine. And it was almost as though the bees knew me, but what's he doing here? So they'd come to investigate. And, but they're such clever creatures. I made a mistake one time. On my beehives, I have the number of the hive wrote above the entrance in white paint. And as part of our management, we sometimes switch boxes around to manage how the colonies are developing. And so this one time, I'd moved the box to the side and put another box in its place for the bees. And I come back a couple of days later, and I'd made it into a smaller beehive and left the other one as a large one. And I come back a couple of days later, and there was just thousands of bees dead all over the floor in front of what was the original box. And I'd moved it, and because I'd made it smaller, I'd done what we call an artificial swarm. The bees that should have been returning to their original location didn't recognise the number.
Wow.
And they flew to their house number, which was now a quarter of the size, and obviously they couldn't fit in the hive, and so they were exposed to the weather, and it killed them. And I hadn't realised that they would actually recognise their house number.
Wow, really?
That's amazing.
So so that was a mistake that I've never ever made again since. So if I'm switching boxes, I have some black ink, and I blot out the number so that. To stop them doing that, so
they're actually cleverer than teenagers.
Teach our teenagers and get some bees instead. So once you've extracted the honey, tell us a little bit about what you do, where you sell it, what kind of different varieties you choose.
I've just started extracting last week. We take the honey boxes, which are called supers. We take them off the hive, and they have 12 frames in each box, and they'll hold somewhere in the region of 20 to 25 pounds of honey. And so I take them back. I've actually converted my garage into a proper honey extraction room, and done that so I could actually get registered with Stockton Borough Council's Environmental Health Department, so I'm proper registered food producer now. And so we take it in the honeycomb. We actually we scrape the top, the wax cappings, because when it's in the honeycomb, the bees actually coat it with a layer of wax to keep it sealed. And so we'll remove that, and then it goes in. I have a centrifuge, so it goes in that, works a bit like spin dryer.
Right.
In the vertical plane, not in the horizontal way. And so we spin it. Centrifugal force forces the honey out of the honeycomb, and it's collected in the bottom, and then it's extracted through a valve. It goes through a strainer, stainless steel strainer, and it's kept in food storage buckets. They hold about 30 jars, and then we'll keep that until we need to obviously process it to sell it. So when we come to sell it, it'll go through a finer filter. I use a 200 micron filter to clear it, so don't want any bits of bee in there or bits of grass or anything like that. So and then it's jarred and goes out for sale. So
there's nothing else added to it. Then you don't add any.
Not the natural honey. Don't add anything. Could take anything away. It's literally from the bees in the beehive. So when we're talking about pure raw honey, raw's a term. It's not actually a defined legal term to use for honey, believe it or not. But it become very popular because people know to understand that as meaning honey that's not been tampered with.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of adulteration goes on around the world. And supermarket honey's got a real bad name for that. There was a survey done last year, I think it was, where they tested 25 samples of supermarket honey, and 24 were found to have been adulterated in some way. So I think the largest adulterated food in the world is milk, believe it or not, and the second largest is honey.
Right.
So if you are going to buy honey, I strongly suggest you buy it from a local beekeeper, because you're helping the bees, you're helping your local environment, buying it from them. One thing that I do always like to tell people about the bees is a jar of honey. It takes the bees about 1 million flowers to fill that one jar of honey.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
fly something like 55,000 miles. That's twice the circumference of the Earth to fill one jar.
You don't really.
No, you don't.
Yeah, and that equates to, my bees last year produced about 4,000 jars of honey,
Wow.
and that equates to about 4 billion flowers.
Wow.
And so all those flowers turns into seeds, nuts, berries, fruit that all of the other animals and us eat. So that's when they say bees are really important to the environment. That just explains it in a nutshell, I think.
Yeah. Because you see that, don't you, that if the bees all died, then we'd only have 7 days or something?
Well, Albert Einstein reckoned that we'd have somewhere between 3 to 4 years if all the bees... And I think by all the bees, you really need to mean all the pollinators, because bees aren't the only insects that pollinate. And the thing with the honeybees is there's such large numbers of them that they are able to cover such a massive area. Bumblebee nests only contain maybe 300 bees, quite small. They work really hard, but there's not that many of them. And our environment these days isn't helping pollinators at all. So we always try to encourage people to leave a wildflower patch. I've actually managed, after 8 years, to convince my allotment association to let us have a wildflower patch, because they're absolutely obsessed about removing weeds. And, and things like hoverflies, they may only live 3 days they spend all their life as a little grub in the ground, and they'll only live a couple of days as a flying insect. So the chances of getting things pollinated, you need the insects there,
Definitely. And could you have a beehive in your garden? Would you? What kind of space would you need? Is it?
Well, believe it or not, my garden's a little bit bigger than this room that we're in today, and I've had as many as 8 colonies of bees in my garden.
Wow.
And because they're, you'd be used to seeing bumblebees hovering around the plants in your garden quite close to the ground, and you don't really see honeybees doing that. They prefer to forage up in trees and bushes. And when they come out the hive, we always say it's like Star Wars. When a bee first emerges from a beehive, it hovers in front of the entrance. When you think it was born inside the hive, it's never ever been outside, so it doesn't know what its home looks like. So it comes out backwards and it hovers in front of the entrance, and it's taking in
a mental note of its number.
Checking the door number.
That's what it's exactly what it's doing.
I come back and I'm a little bit drunk on all that nectar. I need to remember.
And then it will start doing little figure eights, so it's getting a wider picture of where it is, and then it will start flying around in ever increasing circles like that, going up into the air, and then all of a sudden it's just pong, and it's gone. It makes the jump to light speed, you know. It's and on an evening when the sun's low and you see they're like little spaceships firing off, you know, but they fly really like rooftop height, so you don't notice them. So in the garden, once they've cleared the garden fence, they're gone. And but we did have a funny episode with garden fence blew down. So the neighbour had come round to, you know, see if it was okay to do the garden fence. Said, yeah, I'll give you a hand. And so we're putting this fence up, and he said, oh, you got bees? I said, yeah. How long they've been there? I said, 8 years. And he was like, oh, right. So a couple of days later, we get a knock on the door. Mike, can you do something about the bees? I'm like, why? What are they doing? He said, well, my wife's been stung by one of your bees. I was like, well, how do you know it was one of my bees? Because the strange thing with bees, honeybees, is they don't really forage locally to the hive. Their navigation doesn't work over that kind of distance. It's too close. So they fly. If you have them on a field, they fly on the other side of the field to feed. So anyway, and apparently there were all over his flowers in the garden and drinking his bird bath dry. So they consume huge amounts of water. They use it to cool the hive. And honey, when it's stored, it's too concentrate for the bees to digest. So they have to mix it with some water to, you know, make it digestible for them. So, yeah, my neighbour on the other side, his bird bath, they were drinking that dry twice a day. He was having to fill it up. And you see them just a circle of bees round all drinking the water. So anyway, I had to move the beehives just to keep things pleasant. And then about 2 weeks later, I got a knock on the door again, and it was my neighbour from the other side. And he said, have you moved the bees? I said, well, yeah, I've had to. I said, we've had a bit of a complaint. He said, but my tomatoes are not getting pollinated in the greenhouse anymore.
Can't win, can you?
I had to sneak a little hive back and just hide it in the corner of the garden so to keep him happy. So,
Gosh, it's absolutely fascinating. I feel like we could talk for hours, but unfortunately we can't. But if somebody wanted to find you, buy some of your honey, where do you sell it, or where can they come to?
Well, I've got my Hogarth Honey Facebook page and my Instagram page, so you can find us on there. I don't mind people coming to my home. If they'll contact me, send me a message, and we can arrange to pick up or drop off or something. Do sell it locally, sell it in Wolverhampton Post Office, and sell it at Home Farm up at Elwick Village. There's a dairy parlour there where they sell raw milk and free-range eggs. We have colonies of bees on the farm, and so I can buy the honey from there. And I do various markets throughout the year that we advertise on our Facebook and Instagram pages, so they can find me at markets as well.
Brilliant. And if anybody wanted to learn more about beekeeping?
Yep, definitely the local association.
Yeah.
I've already mentioned them. They all run beginners courses. They are really, really friendly places to go to. I absolutely tormented the people when I first started. With information overload and the learning curve is just huge. And when you're beginning, you panic, you don't know what you're doing. My mentor, a gentleman called Uno, he's a really, really nice guy, and he offered to be my mentor. And I would ring him up. I'm like, oh no, this is happening in my house. What do I do? And he'd just laugh at me, and he'd just say, they'll be fine. Just put the roof back on, and they'll figure it out. And so your imagination runs riot sometimes when you, particularly in your early years. And there's times now that we still get stuck with things that we've not experienced before. So the members of the associations are its greatest resources. Because there's always somebody that you can pick the phone up to, get some advice and even physical help. Sometimes people might hurt the back or whatever, and there's usually somebody that is willing to help you out. So do approach your local beekeeping association, and you've got to start at that point. We do get people calling us that have just gone out. I think B&Q sell beehives now.
Wow.
And, I don't think they sell bees, but they sell all the components.
Yeah.
And it's unfair on the bees to take them on. They have to be managed. They are like sheep and cattle. There's statutory notifiable diseases that you must inform the National Bee Unit and the Ministry if you find them in your hives. So you've got to be able to recognise those things. And the only way you're going to do that is by doing proper courses. There's a national learning program that BBK do with exams and qualifications where you can work your way up towards. I've really only part way through that journey, getting towards to be a master beekeeper. So I've got a long way to go on that side. But it's a really well structured hobby, beekeeping, and it really is rewarding. You get to be out in the countryside, in nature. You see, the other day I had deer walking past me while I was beekeeping, and everybody likes bees. So you're welcome wherever you go. So anybody thinking of doing it, I would say go for it. I really wish I'd done it 30 years ago. Really do.
Yeah. Fast. I'm thinking about it. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Be amazing. But it's just been absolutely unbelievable to talk to you.
It's been a real pleasure. Yeah, really insightful and so interesting. And I feel like we could carry on our conversation for another hour.
Well, that's the conversation we've had is about that much of it. It really is. And the more you learn, the more you are amazed by these little tiny creatures, So, as I say, really rewarding interest.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you both.
It's been great.